Hey, what's up, you guys? Paul here. So, today Master Duel dropped a new Yu-Gi-Oh Banlist update, and it's a pretty big one, so we're going to go through it, take a look at all the cards, I'll share my thoughts, and of course, I want to hear you guys' thoughts. Right after, of course, you like the video and subscribe to the channel. It's always very important. Okay, this banlist also goes into effect, by the way, on December 5th, right before the next Duelist Cup. A fitting timing, I would say. And here we go. So, this is the ban list. This is everything. You've probably already seen it, but yeah, so a couple of cards went to 2, to 1, unlimited, all that stuff. Let's start with the cards that were limited. So first there's Runic Fountain. This one is certainly like a welcome change, I think, for a lot of players. People don't really like facing Runic. I'm kind of one of them. This is a very annoying deck, and the Runic quick play spell is activated in the hand when the field spell's up, so that's obviously quite rough. And then also the advantage generation that this card can get, drawing you up to 3 cards, and even having only a soft once per turn, so they can technically do it like twice and stuff if they want to. Yeah, this card can be just really generally very annoying. At 1, Runic still can access this very easily. You could always just, special summon Hugin with any of your spells. However, it means that your chances of just raw drawing this or hard drawing it are extremely low, especially with Terraforming also banned. So your first quick play spell will pretty much always be dedicated to searching for your Runic Fountain. And that's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, I think that making Runic a little easier to deal with is fine. It's just that I had not seen this deck a lot on the ladder lately, like, Platinum, Diamond, Master Rank. You'd see it every now and again for sure, and it is still very much not like a pleasant time. But I don't, I don't think that this is like a card that needed to get hit very much. And I certainly didn't hit any Naturia cards, so I wonder how this affects the Naturia Runic deck. I'm not like super aware of that. I don't really play it, I just play against it. So somebody can maybe fill me in, but it is at 1 now. So Runic feels very, very fragile. This card getting removed is kind of a death sentence, particularly if it's like banished. So next card is Mathmech Diameter. Now this is the big, big conversation piece of this entire ban list. I think I can kind of discuss it alongside the Signet Mining to 2 thing. But Mathmech Diameter is a really weird card, mostly because I think people expected Mathmech Circular to be the one that got hit. Mathmech Circular being a, honestly, way too good play starter. It, sends a Cyberus monster from your deck to the grave as a cost to just activate and summon itself, and then, of course, it generates advantage. It can search like a spell and stuff when things are summoned. Diameter's a bit of a strange one, so it's just their, like, normal summon, target a Cyberus in your grave, and grab it back. And so that means that it is certainly a piece of the combo, but it's not really the starter, and that's usually kind of what people would go for. And also, putting this card to 1 doesn't feel like it's particularly effective because, I mean, the card is like, I mean, you only really need 1 for the most part in a given turn. Now, this does mean that extended plays with this card, like using maybe Cyberus Wicked or something like that, I guess are a little bit, like, you can't really do those. So I guess the longevity of Mathmech is kind of hampered by this. That said, though, I've never really thought of Mathmech as much of a grindy deck. You're typically winning or losing pretty soon when you play it. I would have preferred Mathmech Circular be limited as well. It's strange, too, because the TCG and the OCG both chose to hit Circular to 1. So it's a little weird. I guess Master Duel's kind of being a rebellious little trendsetter here. And I will say this, and I've heard a few people say this as well. I think if they had like chosen to ban Mathmech Diameter, then that would have been like an interesting subversive little hit that would have actually affected the Mathmech combo a lot. But Master Duel tends to stray away from outright banning cards, I've noticed at least. So we'll see what this does, and it is joined by Signet Mining to 2, which is a slight consistency hit to the Mathmech sort of Cyberus pile strategy that's been so popular lately. I don't think that this is like a huge hit. It does make it ever so slightly tougher to see maybe your Mathmech Circular, but the deck does still have access to things like Small World, so I don't know that this is going to see a significant, like, impact. However, it does fall pretty closely in line with Master Duel's general tendency to use the semi-limited list liberally, and also just to try to just shave away at consistency. Just a reminder for anybody who maybe has not heard my thoughts on it in general, Master Duel being a digital game, I think they focus a lot more on card win rates and like deck win rates. And so for them, if putting Signet Mining to 2 would statistically make Mathmech slightly less likely to win games over like thousands and thousands and thousands of them, then that's an effective hit for them. Now, do I agree with that? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Later on here, you'll see there's like an example where I think that could be useful. But yeah, Silent Magnitude is kind of a weird one. It also, well, I know some people have said that they think that Circular didn't get hit because like it's a UR or whatever, and this is like a rare, and they don't want to give people back the gems. That could be an influencing factor, but sometimes I just think Master Duel ban lists are just weird for the sake of being weird. Anyway, Tempest to 2. So I don't think this is really a super relevant hit, but it does help out with the Armed Dragon strategy. I've actually seen people playing like an Armed Dragon Kashtira hybrid just for fun. This is not something that really like, is going to do super duper well or anything competitively, but more access to Tempest is never really a bad thing for those sorts of decks. We've seen that Dragon Link does not really like use the Dragon Rulers and stuff very much, even with Tempest. So this helps Armed Dragons and a few other Wind decks, and that can be a fun thing to play around with. So I'm here for that. Next, we've got a pretty big one, Pot of Desires to 2. So this card is not super surprising to see. As you guys can tell, it's actually at 2 already in the OCG and the TCG. And so it kind of continues Konami's big crackdown on like the pot cards in general. You guys remember last list we had Extravagance go from 2 to 1, and we already have had Prosperity at 1. So Pot of Desires is slowly joining them. It would not even be a surprise to see this go to 1 in Master Duel in the near future, if the trend is to be believed. I think that they're just kind of coming down. It's coming to a point where I think with modern Yu-Gi-Oh, these pot cards are maybe just a little too strong. They just offer a little too much consistency in a game, where seeing a single card can oftentimes be like all you need to start an entire combo. So do I agree with the Desires hit to 2? I don't really have a strong opinion on it. I don't tend to play a lot of decks that use Desires, so I don't have a lot of experience with this card. I think when I do use Desires, I typically prefer only playing 2 copies, but I do see how in Master Duel, there's more of an argument to play 3 copies because it's best of 1 and you really just need to see cards like then and there. Even if it means there's a risk of perhaps drawing a second Desires with your Desires, that always sucks. I still think that if somebody was running it, there would be an argument for running 3 as well. So now I'll just take that argument out of the picture and it just says you gotta always run 2. To some people, that was already the correct way to do it. To others, it was 3. But either way, there's no choice now. So 2 Desires. Okay, next are 2 hits to Dragon Link, Quick Launch and Chaos Space. So you guys, if you saw my last banlist predictions video, will know that I did think that Chaos Space could certainly afford to be limited or something. It probably makes more sense in Master Duel fashion that this card goes to 2, and both of these going to 2 is certainly a moderate consistency hit for Dragon Link. I am not a Dragon Link player, so I cannot speak for the deck personally, but I do think that this will make it a little less consistent, but again, in Master Duel fashion, it does not change like the ceiling of what the deck can really do. And I think that Dragon Link in particular is one where they can probably add a number of different extenders or combo starters like in its place. There's no shortage of really strong dragon cards. So I see this as something that they can probably bounce back from rather easily, but it does like slightly affect things. I think the Chaos Space hit even more so than the Quick Launch hit, just because like Chaos Space did a little bit more setup in the process, whereas Quick Launch is just straight up, okay, here's, like Rocket Tracer. But I don't mind these hits. I know like it was probably overdue. Like Dragon Link won, at like Master Duel or like at Worlds, sort of got a lot of representation in the finals and stuff. So it made sense this would eventually happen. Cool. They might have to do a little bit more later on, but maybe they won't. Okay, next is the Plli hits, and these are the hits where it seems like just a consistency hit on the surface, but this does actually change a fair bit for the Plli deck. So they chose to, Plli. People got really mad at me when I pronounced it Plli before, so I'll try to say Plli. Yeah, the Plli, Delicious Memory, and regular Plli hits are interesting ones. I remember saying that I thought the Delicious Memory and Sleepy Memory would probably both go to 2. This is a similar enough hit. Because Plli does not have a hard once per turn on this effect, it means that summoning multiple ones in a turn can get you quite a lot of advantage and digging and stuff over the course of a turn. And having only 2, I think, does change significantly how much the deck can actually do in a given turn. And it does mean that there's a little bit more urgency to actually like get these things shuffled back into the deck. Called by the Grave technically hurts it ever so slightly more. And the Delicious Memory hit in particular means that when you're using My Friend Pearly, you cannot just select, say, 3 delicious memories and just force your opponent to give you one. You'll have to select like 2 delicious memories and like a sleepy memory, for instance. And that does sort of change the way that the deck works. Now, I'm also not a Pearly player, so I don't know loads about how this changes the overall strategy. I was just reading a little bit online to see what other people were saying, and the consensus is that the deck will have a tougher time making like 2 copies of Noir, for instance. I've seen a lot of variants online that do that. It's still possible, just a little bit harder. I'm interested in seeing how this goes because I do feel like this is a significant hit to what the deck actually does. The raw amount of like quick play spells that the Pearly deck has access to does change the likelihood that they'll be able to like discard more things and how much they can like search and stuff, and their likelihood of hitting a card like this with Pearly itself, because it just executes the top 3. So this could actually be a meaningful hit. The next one, I'm not so sure. This is Labyrinth Stovey Torby to 2. So I did mention in my video that I thought Labyrinth would take some really light consistency hits, if nothing else. And this is probably the lightest of light consistency hits. Now, Labyrinth Stovey Torby is something that I know people did typically run like 3 copies of this and like a lot of the furniture, or 3 Stovey Torby and like 3 Chandraglier. But I've also seen people only run 2 of this and just kind of, relinquish that 3rd spot for maybe another hand trap or something like that. I think that this is a very, 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 very minor hit to them, but it will do something, and sure. Now, the fact that this thing has like, a hard once return on its effects anyway means that this isn't really changing the ceiling of anything that Labyrinth can do. It just means that it's a hair less consistent, and that's fine, I suppose. I think people would have probably preferred Eradicator or Eradicator Epidemic Virus or Dimension Shifter be the cards to get hit. I was one of those people who said like maybe they could even go for like Coup Clock, which I think people saw as maybe a bit of an extreme opinion. So this is the lightest possible hit I think you could really see here. I would say that if they wanted to do consistency, maybe they could have just gone for like, man, I don't know, one of the welcome traps. But this is something, so we'll see how it affects Labyrinth's win rate. It probably will shave it down ever so slightly because Labyrinth can be a bricky deck, slightly bricky deck. So it will ever so slightly brick more. Okay, and then finally, they've unlimited Zodiac Trident. Bit of a weird one. This card was at 1 and it went from 1 straight to 3, so that's odd. Usually you'd expect like Yu-Gi-Oh to kind of slowly move cards around. I don't mind this. I don't find like Zodiac Trident to be particularly obnoxious, especially because like Broad Bull and stuff is still like gone. But I'm interested in seeing if Zodiac kind of sees more of a place in the metagame, especially with like the Duelist Cup being right after this. Will people start playing this more? Trident is still a really strong card. Quick effect pops are never a bad thing, and a lot of people just play kind of the Zodiac, like Zeus-Diac deck, I like to call it. So cool. I don't have too much of a problem with this. Hopefully this doesn't get to be like too annoying. And I think that it will see some play. And Lyralus Cobalt Sparrow, this is also just going to 3. I guess that maybe somebody could actually try a Zodiac, like Tri-Brigade sort of variant with these 2 cards coming back. Maybe they expect that to be what gets hit, or what gets more popular with these hits. Okay, so general overall thoughts. First of all, I think that this is a Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel ban list like through and through. And by that, I mean this is the trademarked Master Duel list where they go more for consistency hits instead of actual like, cutting off, nipping the bud problems, right? And not everybody really agrees with that approach. I'm mixed on it. I think that consistency hits make sense from the perspective that they're probably coming from, which is that they just want card and deck win rates to go down slightly. So, in the case of like the Signet mining thing or the Chaos Space quick launch thing, these little tiny hits, even like the Stovey Torby thing, means that like a Dragon Link player's win rate might go from like 60% to like 58%. And I know that sounds like nothing and negligible, and it is in the sort of match-to-match experience. Like, when you lose to Dragon Link, you'll still lose to them in largely the same way. Nothing, like, your experience as a player does not change. But on, I think, the Konami sort of R&D end of the spectrum, where they're seeing all the data, they will see that with these Chaos Space and Quick Launch hints, for instance, the Dragon Link deck's like win rate will slightly decrease, and that might just get it within the sort of standard deviation that they would like it to be in, and that's enough for them. Do I think it's a good ban list? I actually think so. Like, I don't have like a big problem with this outside of maybe just the diameter hit feeling a little weird. But, you know, I think this is something that we can get with. I think it doesn't rock the boat all too much, and that's probably for the best. With another Duelist Cup coming up, it would probably be a bit much to ask for them to like drastically change the format right before this, sort of cutthroat hellscape little event that is the Duelist Cup. And the last thing I think I should probably mention is that Kashtira did not get hit. I think that this is all right, honestly. There's been a collective shift, I think, in mentality around Kashtira, which is that the deck is fairly easy to out, like dealing with, a Rise Heart and stuff, a lot of removal cards, Lava Golem, even Raigeki, whatever, can kind of deal with the card pretty easily. And also the deck is, I'll say very bricky, because there are decks that are really bricky, but it is quite a bricky deck. It can be pretty unreliable. I still would have liked to see a Fenrir hit, and I don't think that has much to do with Kashtira. It's more about just the fact that like every deck kind of runs Fenrir, which makes it a very strong and annoying staple. But I can live with it not getting hit here. It might get hit in the future. It might not. There are also new decks on the horizon, so I will say that if you're not satisfied with this list and you feel like it's still just going to be more of the same, remember that we are due to get like a new Rescue Ace card, new Unchained cards, so there's certainly stuff on the horizon that will probably make a pretty meaningful impact in the game. I mean, even already we've seen like Vanquish Soul at least make a bit of a difference. So yeah, I think overall, it's a fine ban list. It's okay. It's a very Master Duel ban list. I think we just need to, come to terms with it, the facts at some point that like this is how Master Duel is going to kind of handle ban lists. It's never going to be what you expect. It's never going to be what you think would be the totally logical way to hit a deck, and that's just how it goes. And that's just the kind of that's the that's what you accept when you play Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel, is that these ban list hits are not always going to be what you want. Really, that's Yu-Gi-Oh in general, but on Master Duel in particular, there's always going to be a little quirky, and maybe that's just kind of making Master Duel different and exciting and fun. Anyways, I will be logging on as usual, so it's not like it changes very much for me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, thumbs up the video, all that great stuff. I'll see you guys in the next one. Pass turn.